shooting down in the woods. He wouldn't leave here even if he could. 'Cause life is good, yeah!
Hickok45, your internet shooting companion, coming to you from the beautiful hills of Middle Tennessee. Yes, Tennessee, the home of Alvin York and Dolly Parton. You knew that was coming, didn't you? And it's still not entirely exactly beautiful, I guess, depending on what you call beautiful. Leaves are still off, but that will be changing, before too awfully long. It's almost February. And that's cool because you know what comes after February? Yeah, some of you do. March. And March is when we get the transition. Things begin to change, sometimes warm up, and even start budding out. Just depends on the year. Crazy weather lately, but you never know. And then April, right around the corner. So if we survive the winter, all will be good, right? T.S. Eliot said that April was the cruelest month. I don't agree. I think maybe January is the cruelest month, perhaps. Could even be February. Depends on where you live. But, it's tough in some ways, maybe for many of you, getting through the winter. Now, if you live in San Diego, you don't know what winter is. What's that mean? Or somewhere like that, Miami. But out here in the middle of the country, things get kind of bleak. They do. I think people don't get out as much, maybe. Depends on where you live and what you do. Maybe you get out more in the winter. You enjoy the winter sports and you ski and things of that nature. But generally speaking, I think a lot of people become a little bit more housebound in January, in the middle of the country. And it's just not as much fun for me. Of course, I'm not really housebound. I get out, but it's still different. So, especially for shooters or shooter wannabes, you want to get out there and enjoy the hobby, the sport. And sometimes weather makes it uncomfortable. So we don't want anything to make our hobby uncomfortable, right? Or difficult. Of course, it would have to be pretty difficult to keep me inside and away from the trigger. So, shooters and shooter wannabes. There are. When I say wannabe, we use that term in a negative context a lot of times. But I mean anybody who wants to be a shooter, that is working towards being a shooter, trying to get him or herself into position to obtain firearms, or just age a little bit more so you can get some firearms, get out of the house maybe. You might be one of those unfortunate characters I hear from occasionally whose folks just have nothing to do with firearms, don't want anything to do with firearms, and that's tough if you're 14 years old. What do? You can't go against your family or anything. You go play some video games or something, I guess, but you just need to age a little bit, and as with all of us, we decide some things for ourselves once we get to a certain age. And sometimes that could be picking up the hobby of shooting, regardless of what Uncle Joe thinks, or even your parents. They don't have to be shooters, right? You don't have to be a non-shooter the rest of your life just because they did not like firearms or were afraid of firearms. So anyway, a lot of variety out there in the way people are raised, and it's just those people. A lot of people were not raised around firearms, and they're not bad people. They just have not had the experience, and firearms are like rattlesnakes to them, dangerous things, and so it's understandable in some ways, but it's still illogical, really, right? And they're worried about you, touching one of those evil things, and that they want the best for you. So, but there will come a day when you will not be a shooter wannabe. You will be a shooter. Look forward to the day. In the meantime, you can be learning about firearms and all the various shooting sports competitions and deciding on what you want to do, what you might like to participate in, because it's a big world. When you say you're into firearms, it's like saying you're into cars, isn't it? I mean, what do you mean by that? You could be a skeet shooter, a shotgunner. You go shoot trap and clay pigeons, sporting clays, or something. It might be all somebody does that but they shoot a great deal. They may even hand load all their shotgun shells, so it's a huge sport. But they may not even own a handgun. They don't even know what an AR-15 feels like, perhaps. And then there's 3-gun matches, and there's bullseye competition, and there's IPSC, and there's what else? There's Glock matches, GSSF, IDPA, Bianchi Cup. I guess they still do that. The steel shoots, and just who knows how many. Many I'm not aware of course. Just the ones that I have done and have read about. So cowboy action shooting, almost left that out. Lots of different endeavors in the shooting sports. So if you are a shooter wannabe, be wanting to be one and be working towards it. Your time will come. Could be that it's not that you're too young, but you live in the wrong country or shooting or state even. Well, there's even a remedy for that. I'm sure I know there are people because I've heard from them who have moved to this country to enjoy the firearms freedoms. Largely that's the reason they moved here. So you can always move. Nobody's nailed down. You can move to a more firearms friendly part of the globe perhaps. So anyway, how to get off on all of that? Man, I'm just crazy. I get started and I don't know what I'm going to talk about. Well, one thing I might talk about is this piece of wood and steel that happens to be resting here beside me. Oh, wonder what that sounds like. Not an Xbox. That is a bolt gun, isn't it? Give you a clue. It cocks on closing, shoots a .30 caliber projectile, otherwise known as a bullet. And let's see, came from across the pond. Yes, the Lee Enfield, pretty cool. You've seen it. It's my number 4 Mark II, and it's a beauty. Thought I might browse around or prowl around the ranch here, the compound, take a few shots with it. It's not a bad day for into January at all. It can be about 50 degrees here. If I can quit yakking soon enough, there'll be some daylight left, and I will go sling some of those 303 British projectiles. I like this rifle. It's one of those rifles that has grown on me. I remember when I bought it, it was mainly because it was inexpensive, and I thought it was kind of neat. Didn't have one. I knew the 303 had a lot of history, but didn't know a lot about it. And used to be able to buy these things for, pocket change almost. And over the years, I've learned more about it. I've fired it more, and I just really like it. It's one of my favorite rifles, very favorite, one of my very favorite bolt guns, no doubt about it. So if you have one or have fired one, you know what I'm talking about, don't you? Well, I haven't been at the reloading bench much lately. Been to SHOT Show, which some of you know about. Told you I'd be there. We had a meet and greet there. It was very, very successful, fun on Friday of SHOT Show. And prowled around, checked out all the new guns, old guns. Met a lot of folks and that I had not met. Met some I'd already met. Saw some I'd already met. And I pretty much thoroughly enjoyed the SHOT Show. Okay. And I know I don't bring you a lot of stuff from the SHOT Show. We'll talk about some of it now, but we just don't. I don't think the camera came out of the truck the whole time we were out there. But that's just us. I go to the SHOT Show to see stuff and see what's going on and other things. And in some ways, I don't know. I'm torn. I know I could do some great travel logs and things, and it just makes it a totally different experience when you do that, though. I don't really have the experience. And if I'm constantly doing videos and thinking about that, it's kind of the way I am. Maybe that's why we do the types of videos we do. So I can just go ahead and shoot and talk about what I'm doing, and without fancy editing and everything. And it's more like I don't know, just doing what I've always done. I just don't want to become the travel log guy. And when I get back, I always think, wow, I could have brought some cool video back, but it would be a different experience. I can show you some things and talk about some things that you might want to see, though, because we had a great trip. We were going to just fly out there, but didn't. And boy, I tell you, in the future, I am going to fly. That's enough of these 4,000 and 5,000 mile truck trips. It's fun, and seen a lot of stuff. That Ridgeline is a masterpiece of machinery. I mean, it just cruises along like a big Cadillac at 80 miles an hour, out there through West Texas and all through the West. And, it's wonderful, but still involves a lot of hours behind the wheel. But anyway, we did go to the SHOT Show and saw the new stuff. It's even though there's a lot of new offerings from the gun companies, I always come back and think, okay, what really excited me? What really pizzazz me? And of course, people are always asking you when you run into them out there, well, what have you seen that was, just cool? What's the most memorable thing you've seen? Or what do you see? Because they keep expecting all sorts of things. But really, what can you do with firearms that is dramatically different? Really? You can make interchangeable barrels. You can build them a little bit better. You can have new models, new variations of what we already have. And I'm not criticizing all that. It's good stuff, because there are improvements that make a new model more desirable than one you've been owning, shooting, carrying, and so you're going to maybe trade for it. Or you haven't bought an AR yet, and they finally got one that will do this or that, or in this chambering, or has interchangeable barrels easily, or something. So there are attractions, of course. New companies building things they hadn't built before. So it's all interesting. It's just not maybe exciting, I guess. I don't know, but it is interesting seeing all the stuff. And one of the things I like is just be able to walk by whoever it is. You go to the Daniel Defense booth, or the Colt, or the Bond Arms, or you name it, whatever company you want, and there's everything they make right there. And they can talk to you about it. You can pick any of it up, snap it, whatever you want to do. All the firing pins have been removed. So that's one of the real beauties of it. It could be a firearm you're well aware of, but you just have not fired or haven't held yet, and there it is. You can fondle it, handle it, snap it, and get a better feel for what that firearm feels like, and weighs and everything. So there's always that, but it's not the kind of thing, I think, where your eyes, at least my eyes, are always just big, because around every corner there's a new gun. As much as I like guns, right? So, but yeah, pretty interesting place to go. The biggest gun show in the world, I guess. I don't know what else you'd call it. Of course, now for people who have not been to the SHOT Show, maybe maybe my eyes did get big a few times, because one thing you have different at a SHOT Show like this, in addition to all the guns, is that some booths, actually, companies hire models to be in the booth to attract people into the booth. So that's always an eye-opener sometimes there, right? Can't hate that. But mainly you're there to look at the guns, and so what can I say? I really don't have a lot of firearms to mention. It's interesting that SIG now has the compact and subcompact out in the 320. I think they've got even a 45 in the 320, the subcompact. I don't know, that new striker fired SIG. Man, what ARs? We saw a lot of ARs, of course. John and I went by the LWRC booth Friday morning. Actually, didn't get to it till Friday. Didn't see it till Friday morning, and they make some nice guns. They're all piston firearms, aren't they? I'd forgotten about that. I knew they made one of the really high-end ARs. I guess whenever you see a list of the top 5 ARs, now when I say top, it doesn't necessarily mean the most reliable, the top and tops in reliability, okay? But in terms of most expensive, high-end, the ones that are definitely good guns, some of the best at the top. You always see W or LWRC in there, Daniel Defense, Colt. I'm forgetting, but there's 5 or 6 that are pretty much undisputed, as being some of the very top firearms. And I'm still not sure what I think about a piston AR in terms of a regular AR. Now, I know the Scar 17 I have is a piston gun. It's like the M1A and everything. But I don't know, when I go back to a 5.56 and an AR configuration kind of firearm, I'm still not sure piston-driven versus direct impingement where I'd want to put my money if I was going to buy a really high-end one, spend $2,500 on an AR. I don't know if the verdict's really in on that. I know the world went gaga over piston-driven ARs there for a while, and I think that the excitement may have calmed a little bit, but I mean, they work, I guess. Don't know what I think about that yet, but I saw some models I really, not booth models, yeah, I saw some that I really like too, but I saw some models of the LWRC that I really liked, I have to say, as well as Daniel Defense. Some kind of a slimmer rail, and which I like, and just really nice AR, the trigger, and kind of the ultimate, but not cheap, of course, and not necessary. On some of those, you don't have to spend $2,500 for a nice AR. You can get some really nice ones for what, $12, $15, and you can get one for $6 or $8 that will work. So a lot of variety out there in the AR field. And it's hard to, as John and I have pointed out in videos, it's tough to evaluate them in a lot of ways. You can point out, various features and show whether they work or not, what you like, don't like. But in terms of what's going to last if you go to war with it, that's the more difficult proposition there to test and demonstrate. Can be done. I mean, it could be done. I'm not interested in burning 10,000 rounds through this model AR and 10,000 through that model, see what happens. It would have to be the AR-15 channel, and I mean, that might be an endeavor for somebody to do that. So, and then again, as I've pointed out, one AR might last 20,000 rounds and the other one bums out at 8,000 rounds. But then even at that, look what you've put into that, the money and time to test that. And it could just be that particular gun. You really need to do that with a bunch of each model, to start to develop a pattern and everything. So we'll let other people do that, and I mean, basically let you all do that. That's where the verdict is. People who have owned whatever it is, a Daniel Defense or a Colt or a Smith & Wesson M&P, have owned them for years and shot them a lot. That's and post on forums or videos, wherever. That's where you get the answer about those. That's where I get the answer about those. Look around, see what experience people are having. So, but anyway, lots of ARs. Oh man, went by Springfield. I'll tell you what, I'm going to have to request one of those Scout, M1A Scout models. I have never had the Scout link. You know what I'm talking about? I think it has an 18-inch barrel. It's mid-range between the SOCOM and standard length M1A. That is just a great size rifle, that mid-size M1A, and shoot that. And I think they have the same gas system. When they moved down to the SOCOM, they had to modify the gas system appreciably, I believe. But the word I get is that you got basically the same gas system. That way you're not so short that it has to be changed much. And just a nice size and good looking rifle. Man, where else do we go? Well, went to everybody, Glock, Sig, Kunin. I'm gonna have to. I talked to them about a 357 Magnum, and get a lot of requests for that. The Kunin, I think they pronounce it. It's a kind of a 1911 style in 357 Magnum semi-automatic pistol. As I had recalled, they made those, I think, since back in the 70s. That they were not all that reliable, but apparently they have improved those over the years, over the decades. So I handled a few of those, and we'll be requesting one of those sometime this spring, I think. And Glock, of course, came out with the new 10 millimeter and the new feature on what they call it, MOD or something, a modular plate that comes off the back. I forget what they call it, but you can put on a RMR sighting system on there if you want to, and which I would not do myself. And I'd like to never found one at their gigantic booth that had standard sights on it. Finally found one. Just I wanted to see what that plate looked like and all that with it just on there in regular sights, and it looks fine. You can take it off and install the sights, but it's fine. Anyway, if you're not familiar yet, it's a Glock 40, Model 40, and it's a long slide, longer than the 41, longer than the practical tactical Glocks, and it's in 10 millimeter. Okay. So I was wondering, I had read the rumor mill was pretty strong that they were coming out with, I think what a lot of people thought it was going to be like the 41, the practical tactical in 10 millimeter. And it was going to be slim, like the Model 41, 45. And I couldn't imagine how they'd do that or why they would do that, because if you chamber that Model 41 in 10 millimeter, you got yourself a pretty snappy pistol, because the Model 41 is the 45 ACP, came out last year, and it is actually lighter than the Model 21 in 45. Okay, it's got a thinner slide, a little bit longer, but it's thinner and it weighs less. Check out our videos on that. And I thought, wow, it's a little bit snappier than the Model 21. I like it a lot. It's just ever so slightly snappier than the Glock 21, but I like it. I like it better than the 21. Just slimming down the slide, just add a little bit of added length. I just like it. So I thought, wow, and 10 millimeter, it will really be snappy, but it's longer. It's a long slide. So I don't know what the difference in weight is between it and the Glock 20, the other 10 millimeter. Probably about the same. And then, of course, you have the added sight radius, and it has a full 6-inch barrel. So, pretty nice little hunting piece there. So we'll have to get one from somebody and try it out. Looking forward to that. And then they also have that same sighting system on I think all the practical tactical models, basically 34, the 35, and the 41. You can take that little plate off and install some kind of optic there if you want to. What else did we do? Well, did we see? We saw everything basically at the shot, and then, like I say, the meet and greet went well. ATK, Federal had an incredible booth. That's massive, and so that went well. We had a good turnout, and got to talk to a lot of you. Thank you if you're one of those who showed up, and or we just ran into around SHOT. Ran to a lot of you at the SHOT show. And I know everybody can't go to the SHOT show. You have to be in the industry somehow or pretend to be, right? And we actually went to the media day, industry day this year for the first time, and that was okay. I didn't really shoot anything. Well, I took a couple of shots, one Ruger, I think, but we just went mainly to take a look at things and maybe meet some of the other gun writers, and got to chat with Lee Ermey a little bit, and that kind of thing. Stayed there a little bit, but that was pretty cool. Again, didn't do any video. We tend not to. Most of those things, just we're there to see people and shoot things, and yeah, for the experience. They're in the desert. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. In fact, we had another great trip. The SHOT Show was just one piece of the trip again, and like I said, we did that last year, and then this year, and that'll probably be it for that. But it was well worth it. Drove 5,000 miles, and that was great. Went through Dallas and down to San Antonio. John had not seen the Alamo, and there we went through the Blackhorn Saloon and the Texas Ranger Museum there, and enjoyed San Antonio. Then went back up through West Texas up to New Mexico to Roswell. Yeah, where I was born, or excuse me, where I landed. And that's an interesting little town, Roswell, New Mexico. If you don't know anything about Roswell, New Mexico, you'd better look it up. So that was pretty. Oh, we went to a couple of gun shops too in Roswell. They weren't run by aliens either. And we had a couple of great gun shops. Oh man, since I was 20 or 16, I've been a gun shop bum. And if I'm anywhere and I see one, my car won't let me drive by it for the most part. And I've been that way my whole life on the road, wherever I am, whether I've flown in somewhere or I'm driving. If I see a gun shop, I like to pop in there. Always have, just to see what they've got and how it might be different in that part of the country. And so we went in Roswell. We spent the night there. We saw a couple going in around the main drag. Larry's Gun Shop, I think it was called. Nice shop, great folks, and had a nice chat with them about the aliens. It's pretty neat. And what was the other one? I'm not sure how they pronounce it. ZIA Gun Shop. And man, really nice gun shop. And had a bunch of ballistol. First thing we saw when we went in. And it turns out the owner was very familiar with the videos. And oh man, he made me drink some coffee, made coffee for us, and everything. So it was a great visit. And we've thoroughly enjoyed Fred, I think. So, and his daughter, we met, and maybe I'll post a picture we took of them. But anyway, that's one of the things we enjoy doing when we're out and around, is just dropping in gun shops. And lots of times they don't know who we are, and sometimes they do, and we don't go in there and announce, hey, by the way, it's just I just like to see what people are selling, what they're stocking. And there might be something there that you've been looking for. Same thing. A reason I think a lot of us prowl around gun shows. If you're really into firearms, there's usually something that's always on your radar that you're kind of on the lookout for. Maybe it's a box of ammo for something you haven't been able to find, or some brass or a screwdriver, some gunsmithing tool, whatever it might be. Most things you can find online, but you never know what you'll run into in a gun shop just out there randomly. And I always like to buy it at a gun shop if I can. That's always good. Help keep those folks in business. But anyway, we did stop at a lot of gun shops along the way. But anyway, Roswell, New Mexico, and now this was planned. This wasn't like we just happened into Roswell. John wanted to go to Roswell, meet my ancestors. And we went from there. Guess what's fairly close to Roswell? You guessed it, Lincoln, New Mexico. What happened in Lincoln? You ever heard of Billy the Kid? Pat Garrett? Did you ever hear about Billy the Kid escaping from the Lincoln jail, quote unquote? Not much of a jail. They bolted you to the floor, by a chain. In fact, if you've seen the movie Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, starring Chris Christopherson, James Coburn, and others, Bob Dylan, was in there. They got that kind of right. A lot of it not, but a lot of it's kind of close there. The room where they had Billy chained in the corner, it's pretty much exactly where he was in that jail, and it was pretty neat. And obviously, Hollywood always takes the liberty. But anyway, yeah, we went through the old jail there, the courthouse, and well, courthouse, yeah, courthouse, and there's a jail and everything, and on that upper floor where he escaped from, and he actually, in the movie, he comes out on a porch with a shotgun and shoots Bob Ollinger coming back across the street, with the shells are loaded with dimes and all that, add a little drama to it, but pretty much, he shoots Bell on a stairway. It's inside the building, and there's a bullet hole there in the wall that they think is the one that went through Bell when he shot him down the stairwell. And then he shot Ollinger, Bob Ollinger, who was the other deputy who was across the street. He came back across the street and to see what was going on, and Billy, the kid, shot him out the window, though, and then there's the window there where he shot him and everything. So pretty neat, right there on the spot, the real spot, not the Hollywood spot, where all that happened in Lincoln. So we enjoyed that. And from Lincoln, I guess we pushed on through Arizona down into Tombstone again, and that was a nice place to visit again. In fact, I picked up another box of ammo. Yeah, there at that this doesn't have the Tombstone head stamp on it. If you remember, you've seen my 45 Colt with a Tombstone brass. I fired a little bit since last year. I picked up another box there. There's one gun shop in Tombstone. How horrible is that? You'd think Tombstone would have 8 or 9 gun shops, right? And I bought a box of 4440. How appropriate is that? I'm in the need of 4440 these days with that Henry original rifle. So I got a box of Tombstone ammo there. And that's, oh yeah, I forgot too, by the way, we went to, in San Antonio, a couple of gun shops, went to Nagel's again, which is a great shop. That might be, in terms of inventory, just about the top shop I've been in. It's unbelievable what they have in there. Room after room of firearms in San Antonio. It's kind of on the north side of San Antonio. And they actually had a box of 4440 and Winchester 200 grain soft point. It's actually jacketed, which is not easy to find anywhere. So I bought one. None of this is cheap, of course, but I bought a box of that. The only jacketed 4440 I have to my name. So anyways, glad to find that at Nagel's. And then we went on Tombstone, and that's great. There's just, you can't beat going to Tombstone, or Wyatt Earp, Silver Mines, Doc Holliday, and all that. Read your history if you don't know what happened in Tombstone, Arizona. Last year we missed the Boot Hill part of that. That was pretty cool. Went over to Boot Hill on the way out of town, and lots of graves there, just covered with rock where guys are buried with their boots on, pretty much, and they've had to upgrade the tombstone. They're not really stone, they're wood. They used to use wood, and they've probably redone them a couple of times, but on the marker it'll say what happened, shot trying to rob a stage, or whatever it is, and who it is. And I'll be darned if you've seen the movie Tombstone. There's I think it's early in the movie when they show that grave of Lester Moore. Here lies Lester Moore, 4 shots from a 44, no less, no more. Pretty funny. Of course, we all assume that's Hollywood. Well, I joked with John as we started walking through the Boot Hill Cemetery. I said, we got to see if we can find Lester Moore. It's a joke. Well, lo and behold, there is a grave for Lester Moore. And it didn't have that verbiage on it, but it did say he was shot like 4 times or something. I forget what exactly was on it. And before we left there, I asked, I guess the curator, one of the curators of, it's kind of a museum, that's a protected spot, about that. And he said, yeah, he was a real guy. And he knew this guy. He knew the history of Lester Moore. And, oh, yeah, he's such. He was a cowboy or drove a stage or whatever. He knew everything about him. And he did. He gets shot several times, 4 times, I guess. I don't know. So that was not all Hollywood. So there was a Lester Moore. He's lying there in Boot Hill and Tombstone. No less, no more. So that was pretty neat. Seeing Tombstone again, enjoyed that. We didn't do the tour of the OK Corral this time, or go through the Birdcage Saloon, because we'd done that just a year ago. So we just walked around town, went to the same cigar shop, and sat there and had a cigar with the same guys. It's funny, because I bought a lighter there last year, and they remembered us sort of, and we remembered them, and it's like we just live across town or something. We just dropped in again. We're at 3,000 miles away, but that's neat little town. Lots of interesting shops. Ate lunch there, and really cool saloon, and then pushed on to Tucson, or rather Old Tucson, and that was one we'd missed entirely last trip. And Old Tucson is really where a lot of the old westerns were made, and even newer westerns, or pieces of them, if you're not familiar with it. Unfortunately, they had a bad fire there in 1995, and some of the props and buildings burned, not all of them. But a lot of it's not burnable. It was made, what did they say, back in the 30s when they started filming there. They made a lot of it the old way with adobe bricks, and you can see a lot of them are. But obviously that didn't burn. But that's where so many movies, John Wayne movies, oh man, the list goes on forever. I think it's called Old Tucson Movie Studios, and it was basically set up there in the middle of between the mountains, I guess you'd say. Drive 5, 6, 7 miles out of Tucson to get up there through the valley, and this windy road, and there's nothing up there but that and cactus, and the big saguaro cactuses and the mountain ranges, and it's very interesting place, and I know it's been watered down because of the fire to some extent, but I wanted to see it anyway. And because, man, I know basically all the westerns that were filmed there. And, of course, I recognized a lot of the scenes, and the train from Tombstone, a lot of the buildings, the set, the mountains. If you've ever seen the show High Chaparral, in fact, it's running on Western's channel currently. That I wasn't always crazy about the show. I liked it okay. I think Dad liked it more than I did, but I liked it okay. And it always seemed kind of barren to me. Seemed like it was mostly filmed in the desert, and that kind of thing. But I see why. And now that I'm more familiar with that desert, after having driven hours and hours and hours through the Arizona desert, 2 different years, you really what it should look like. If they're out in the desert. And that one, I did notice since last year, what, that movie is filmed in Arizona for sure, because they're out there prowling around all the saguaro cactuses, which they're not fake. There's hills full of them. And those things, if you didn't know that, the big classic cactus, I'm probably mispronouncing it, like saguaro, I think saguaro cactus, something close to that anyway, is the big tall ones, and has kind of arms coming out on it, a lot of them. And they're highly protected now, and I think they grow for 100, 200 years to get that big, so they are protected, and they don't grow everywhere. You get out of Arizona and try to find them, if you even get into northern Arizona, and you don't see them unless they've been transplanted or something. So I think Southern California, they have something, of course, in Mexico. But that's one way to tell whether they're filming, like in California, the movie set, and they got fake, saguaro cactus and all that kind of thing. Or if they're really out there in the desert in Arizona when they're filming. There's one movie, I think what it is, it's supposed to be, I don't even know where it's supposed to take place, but it's really funny because they somehow got, maybe it's Stagecoach. It's a classic movie. I forget which one it is. But they're obviously up at Monument Valley because the rock structures. And then they're also obviously down in Arizona with all the cactus. Of course, the setting's supposed to be one place, but it's pretty obvious if you travel through there. They're in 2 different places. So now I'm an expert on the West, right? But anyway, that was pretty cool seeing the movie. John Wayne movie, they showed where, the scenes were made from Rio Bravo. And, oh man, what are some of the other? Bonanza, Gunsmoke, like I say, High Chaparral. The ranch house where High Chaparral was filmed was away from the fire. It's still there and intact. That cactus growing right in front. Got a picture right by that cactus, and it's it looks just like it did in the series. And it's interesting. I was watching the one this morning, and everything there, and knowing exactly what the camera angles are. And of course, that ranch house is supposed to be out in the middle of the desert, but John and I know that it's not. It's just we walked over there from the town. It was about less than 100 yards from the Hollywood town there. But it's amazing what you can do with camera angles, isn't it? So that's pretty cool, seeing old Tucson. I enjoyed that thoroughly because, I am a cowboy. You'd probably rather hear more about new guns at SHOT Show than a little travelogue. But, that's why I went to SHOT Show. That's why I have interest in SHOT Show, in owning guns and doing videos and most of what we do. It's because of the interest and the history of firearms and significant events that have taken place around the West or just anywhere. So from there, I guess we went on up through Kingman and on up into Las Vegas. And I can't tell you too much about what happened in Las Vegas. What they say, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So I can only talk about the firearms. If you've never been there, oh man, put that on your bucket list. Now I know you may have no interest. You think, oh yeah, really, I hate gambling. I have no interest in gambling or whatever else that Vegas offers. And I'm not a gambler either. I mean, I usually do a little bit there, just kind of when in Rome, just do a little bit for fun. But it is an amazing place, and the casinos, the hotels. I mean, you really kind of owe it to yourself to see what exists there. John and I I was out there a couple times in the 80s, I guess, or almost 80s, and it's just unbelievable. The Caesar's Palace was right across from us, and of course the show was in the kind of the Venetian, the basement of the Venetian, you could say, in the Sands Convention Hall. But those places, the Venetian and the Caesar's Palace, if you go there and just walk around, you cannot believe it. I don't care where you've been, what you have seen, you will be slightly astonished at least. You will be impressed one way or the other. I mean, it's just amazing what money can build. Amazing. It really is. But that's Las Vegas. It's a totally different sort of animal, no doubt about it. And I guess there really aren't many places that can handle conventions as big as the SHOT Show. And that's one reason it's in Vegas, so far away. So, and then of course the convention, the SHOT Show itself, it's in so many different rooms, and it's very confusing. You get lost. The booths are so big, many of them, that there's no such thing as like at a gun show where you're going down the aisle and you can kind of keep track of where you are, where you've been, where you haven't been, because you're walking down an aisle and then all of a sudden there's ATK Federal, or there's Glock or SIG or Colt or somebody, and they take up the equivalent of 400 booths. And you go around it or you go through it and you just lose your place. You really do. So it's a challenge to find somebody in there or to find a booth. We missed a lot. I know we missed some we meant to see. We never did get by Fax and Firearms. We wanted to get by and see them. There was Lone Wolf. I don't know if Lone Wolf Distributor was there. I never did see them. But an incredibly large display of firearms everywhere you went. Oh, by the way, talk to Nighthawk. We may do a Nighthawk T&E. Looks like, didn't expect to, but looks like we might. and got surprised. They were familiar with the videos, and that makes all the difference in the world, I think, because it really does. We've discovered that, if we have to explain to somebody who we are, we might as well not, but they were very familiar with the videos, and they want to send us one, so we'll do that here sometime this spring. And just everybody. And we eventually left there, and like I say, I can't say any more about Vegas, because what goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas. Went north back through up through the Rocky Mountains. John had not seen the Rockies, so I thought, well, let's just, instead of coming back I-40 or the southern route, let's just come back Interstate 70 up through that way and catch the Rocky Mountains. One thing you get when you drive out there, other than tired, is you are part of that terrain. It's just amazing. If you've ever driven through the West, if you're from the Northeast or the East and have never been out there, that's another thing you owe to yourself. Fly out there or drive out there, but get a car once you're out there somewhere, and I don't know, drive 1,000 miles. It's just incredible. Just incredible, the terrain and how it changes, and the desert. So it's very obvious, driving out of Las Vegas northeastward up through there through the desert, and you get up into I guess Denver before you start getting the hills and the mountains, and it's a while before you get to the mountains, but beautiful, and then through the Rockies and into Denver finally. Wow, what a long drive that was, and a tiring drive. We got into there through Vail, Colorado, up in those mountains, coming through there just about time people were coming off the ski slopes and heading back to Denver. And we got in bumper-to-bumper traffic up through there. I didn't think we would ever get to Denver. And but just so many miles, hours, through those mountains. And as the contrast, the sensations of it all, it just floods you. And then leaving Denver the next morning, heading eastward, it becomes flat. It's as flat a country as you've ever seen. And so talk about a contrast. Denver might hold the record for contrast in terrain. You got the Rocky Mountains in the west, and then you've got tabletop in the eastern part of that state. Unbelievable. And of course, I felt a little bit like we were in enemy territory there too. I didn't want to spend too much money in Colorado, and we didn't. We kind of pushed on through there, considering their stands on firearms and magazine capacity and all that sort of thing. That's a shame. Colorado's a beautiful state, but I don't know, when I get into a state like that, for one thing, I'm paranoid about what I might have in the car. I rarely travel without some magazines and things, and I just try to avoid states, if at all possible, if they frown upon my choice of magazines or firearms, And here you are driving through Colorado, which is 99.9%, hills, fields, and mountains, and you got this stupid magazine capacity restriction. It's bizarre to think about. It really is. But we made it out of there okay, safely, into Kansas. And another reason I wanted to come back through, three things mainly. Wanted to see the Rockies, John to see the Rockies. I'd been out there before and seen the Canadian Rockies and everything, but want to see the Rockies. And then also come back, I-70 through Kansas and then down into Kansas and take in, guess what? Dodge City. Yeah, I always wanted to go to Dodge City and be really annoying to somebody to the point there in town where they finally told me, you know what? Hey, buddy, get out of Dodge. Sorry, couldn't resist. I've heard Matt Dillon say that so many times. But so we went to Dodge City and saw the kind of a replica Front Street. Unfortunately, as always almost happens, these historical places Nobody thinks of them as ever being significant, so they remodel or tear it down and build something else. And but it was replicated, and they had souvenirs from the old days of Dodge, the cattle. Now, again, if you don't know anything about Dodge City, one of the busy cow towns of the West of the late 60s and early 1870s, whatever. Cattle drives coming northward to get to the railhead there, the railroad, and more than they could handle, they just dominated the town. Crazy cowboys, after being on the trail for months, they were ready for a wine, women, and song, or maybe tearing up the town. Yeah, that's where Wyatt Earp came in, and Bat Masterson. They were able to handle those guys. That's how they made their reputation early on. And Earp was a deputy in, gosh, 2 or 3 of those cow towns. I think maybe one in Wichita, Hayes City. There's another one, I think. But anyway, Dodge City. That's really who Gunsmoke, with Matt Dillon, is patterned after. He's really supposed to be Wyatt Earp, so to speak. And although they don't get into the history and specifics, in that TV series, he's just a sheriff there trying to handle that cow town, And but yeah, that's patterned after Wyatt Earp. So that was interesting. And then from there, I wanted to go to Coffeyville, Kansas. And what do you know about Coffeyville? Nothing. Yeah, I thought so. You know anything about the Dalton gang? Well, Google it. Get some history now stuffed up there in that head. Coffeyville was where the Dalton gang met its demise. Little town in, I guess, kind of southeast Kansas. And I've been reading about that for years, just reading about Western history and outlaws and the various things. But the Dalton gang, there were 3 brothers, Emmett, Grat, and Bob. They rode in, and a couple other guys with them. Broadwell and Powers. I forget their first names. But they were, I think, 5. They rode in. They were going to rob 2 banks. They were going to make history and get rich. This was in 1892. Okay, so a little bit later. So they ride in there and tie up their horses. There's something going on construction-wise in the street, so they can't tie the horses up by the bank like they meant to, so they have to go to this alley. They tie up their horses back in this alley and then proceed to rob these 2 banks. Well, they get recognized because they're wearing fake beards, and Daltons were from there. And so they're recognized, and people could see what they were up to. So they go to the hardware store across the street from the bank and get guns. Those who didn't have guns, I guess. And probably 1892, walking around town, the people in town that day, wouldn't necessarily have been packing. But Isham Hardware, it's still there in business. The owner said it was the longest running business in Kansas since 1871, I think. And anyway, the Dalton boys start getting lead rained on them, especially in the one bank, the Condon Bank there, right in the square. And the other bank, I think, was right next to the hardware store. But there was a massive shootout, and 2 or 3 citizens were killed, and then like the entire gang was killed. They killed the entire gang except for Emmett Dalton, who survived. Bunch of bullet holes and went to prison. So this is a massive shootout there, and a very interesting event. You may have seen in some of the books. I've got several books with that picture of the Dalton brothers laid out on the plank sidewalk there, and Winchester lying across them. They're all dead and they're full of holes, and so they took lots of pictures. They were really proud of themselves, and they're still proud of themselves. John and I got the tour of the Condon Bank by Chamber of Commerce. Is in that same building, and they were really nice people. I mean, they were just so friendly and showed us around, gave us a tour. I didn't know who we were. I mean, they just really nice. That's what they do. They're kind of a tourist attraction there. But they're not on the way to anywhere, so they're not accustomed to hordes of crowds, I guess. But that was really, to me, one of the most interesting stops on the trip, because I'd read about the Dalton gang and that raid on Coffeyville for 30 or 40 years, and so to see actually where it happened, and the bank, the one bank, the Condon Bank, is still there, preserved, and hardly anything has been changed. So that was pretty cool. And from there, where did we go? Oh man, I forgot. Well, before that, I was going to tell you, we were while we were still at the SHOT Show, we almost had a shootout here at the compound. My wife had left the door cracked or something by mistake, and the alarm went off after she drove away. And oh man, we had deputies swarming the house, and coming through the compound here because they know I have firearms and they know me and everything. And so I owe them a bit of thanks for that. That's for sure. They're Johnny on the spot if anything pops from right here. And unfortunately, no bad guys to review on the video or anything because it was a false alarm. But it all worked out well. It was right when I was getting ready to do the meet and greet at SHOT Show. It was kind of funny. So I was having to deal with it by phone. But anyway, let's see, where do we go from Coffeyville? Well, we just came on across Missouri and back through Clarksville and home. And it was good to be back. Good to be back. But it's always neat to visit those places. I'm sure you've had that experience before, most of you. Things you've read about, things you've heard about a lot, maybe for years. And then you go there and you see it for yourself. And it just adds another dimension, doesn't it, to your understanding of it, your mental picture, how it took place. And it's just always good to see those. And it's just interesting. It really is. Highly advised if you ever get a chance. I'd wanted to do it for a long time, to just get in a car and drive out west, because I had flown out there while I was in a different employment back in the 80s. I was all over the country basically, but it was by air mostly if it was any distance. And so I had flown over a lot of the West and seen some of it. I'd got out to the desert once or twice when I was in Phoenix. But I tell you, there's nothing like just driving across West Texas, across New Mexico, Arizona. If you really want to feel for it, Nevada and up through anywhere out there. It's the terrain and it's interesting. It changes like every few miles. You'll start to notice a change. Maybe not dramatic, but more hills, or the plant life is different. It's larger, or there's none. Or you start to see little bitty trees, for a while, and then they're not there anymore. More rocks, fewer rocks, and it's just very interesting to drive through there. So save up some bucks, get your car in shape, and if you got a couple of weeks, a couple of weeks would be ideal, even a week and a half, and just take off. You'd love it, I guarantee you. It could be just the opposite. You might live out west and you get tired of the desert and the mountains. You would love to come back through the east and travel some. Well, do that. In fact, the NRA convention is in April. I don't know what the exact dates are, but it's in Nashville, and I'm sure we'll be doing at least one meet and greet, probably either that Friday or the Saturday. So we'll let you know on that. But be certain to plan a trip to the NRA convention in Nashville. Great city for one thing. It really is. So look forward to that. It's maybe the second biggest gun show in the world. The SHOT Show maybe first. But the thing is, at the NRA convention, it's not quite as big. It's bigger than anything you've seen in terms of a gun show, I guarantee you, unless you've been maybe to Tulsa. That I understand that shows out there pretty massive. But you still have all the gun manufacturers, at the NRA convention. I guess the thing you don't have that you do have at the SHOT Show, or maybe, I don't know, a lot of the accessory companies, as many, and that sort of thing. But you got anybody you could think of that makes firearms, they're probably going to be set up at the NRA convention. And it's the same deal. All the firing pins are either guns, and they encourage you to fondle them, try them. And the other advantage of the NRA convention is that it's more oriented to us shooters. It's not an industry thing, whereas a SHOT Show is kind of a business thing. It's really primarily for gun shops to go place orders with these distributors or gun companies. Really, that's I guess the main purpose of it. And you see a lot of that going on. Everybody has meeting rooms, and they're meeting. The buyers are there, and the sellers, and they're selling. They're writing orders. That's what a lot of that is. Whereas that's not really the purpose of the NRA convention. It's for all of us schmoes to go by and see the new guns or see the firearms, and it's a lot of fun. Try to make that if you possibly can. And maybe this would be an appropriate time for me to bring up something regarding all these firearms and choices of firearms. It is neat that we're living in great times. The firearms manufacturers are constantly offering new models, new companies springing up. How many companies you reckon are out there building AR-15s? Lots and lots of choices. We're always waiting for that next firearm, that better sized Glock, that perfect size car, whatever it is, car firearms, that is. But keep in mind, if you have a good shotgun that works, maybe a rifle that works, and a handgun that works, you're probably in pretty good shape. Doesn't take the most expensive firearm, the hottest, newest, even the most not commonplace, but a brand name that everybody recognizes, that doesn't require necessarily the most recognizable brand name. If your firearm is reliable, it can be an old used revolver that's beat up, 38 special, and you might be just as well armed as anybody with those 6 shots of 38 or even 5, because so much of it comes down to your outlook, your mindset, and what's your level of awareness. And if we're talking about the range, hey, give me a 4-inch 38 special revolver. I'll have just as much fun as almost with anything I can take to the range. So we talk a lot about fancy guns. I show a lot of them. We try to get in the interesting guns to us, or guns we think are going to be semi-interesting to you all, guns that you request the most. New models from companies. Maybe they're not even all that different. They're just different enough that some people will be interested. So yeah, we do videos on them and kind of show you what we think and point out the good and the bad. But always keep in mind it's just information. It's food for thought. And every gun that we have shown, I'm sure it's somebody's very favorite gun. And it's thousands of people's probably very favorite gun. When you look at the numbers, but still, you don't have to have $1,000 or a $2,000 firearm to have fun or to defend yourself at all. Give me $1,000, and I could put together a 3-gun battery that get me by probably just fine. Give me some. If I was a deer hunter, let's say, I could probably out of that $1,000 find me some old Mauser or some bolt action gun that's maybe banged up a little bit, but would be great, would be fine, and some military surplus rifle. I'm saying for a couple $300. Same with a handgun. I can find an old used Glock, used anything, revolver, $300-400. What do I have left? Maybe I got $200-300 left for a shotgun. I can get a shotgun, pump shotgun, low end, $300. So now you don't have to do all that the same day. If you don't have a gun and you're at the point where I am going to get a gun, and I'm living in the country and I feel silly for not having a firearm of some sort. Maybe I'm not even a shooting enthusiast. I'm not sure if I want a handgun. Well, get you a shotgun. Don't have to spend that much money, do you? So just a reminder that a lot of us that that spend a lot of time with all these firearms and the new guns from various companies and go to SHOT, NRA convention, and all that sort of thing. Yeah, if you're a shooting enthusiast and you got some dispensable income, you are one of those guys, gals that's probably trading and collecting guns and, back and forth, and you like to see what's new and all that kind of thing. But just remember, if you're on a low-end budget, you can still have a lot of fun shooting and have some decent firearms. They take you a while to get into them, but you don't have to have the high-end stuff, but that's for sure, because a gun is a gun. If it's reliable, that's the main thing. On that topic, one reason we try to do some low-end firearms like the Turkish, the TP9, and the TP9 SA, guns like that, may not be my favorite firearm. Those are types of firearms that I'm not going to be carrying, probably, because I have other firearms I consider a little bit better ergonomically and everything. But, there are firearms that are new firearms. They're also very affordable, like that. And, man, $350, $400. That's why those are considered good guns. They're good guns for the money. They're really good guns for the money, probably. Not to say they're the best guns out there, or that they compete with an H&K or an M&P or a Glock or a Ruger or any of those necessarily. We don't know. The verdict's not in. But there are some low-end firearms out there that you can get into pretty inexpensively without going to a used gun. So we try to do those. Probably don't do enough of them. Still, my core philosophy is save up, cut the beer for a few weeks, and get that one gun that you really want. That it might be another couple $100, but if you could get 200 or 300 saved for whatever it is you're looking at, you can probably come up with another couple of hundred. It may take a little bit longer, but that's my core philosophy. Now, that's just me though. But because there are some pretty good inexpensive firearms that work, and that's the main thing, right? I guess I'll let you go. Giving you enough of the travelogue, I guess. If I ran into you, you ran into me out at the SHOT Show or anywhere on the trip. We ran into a lot of people, on the trip in gun shops and just out and around. Good to meet you, and appreciate you watching, because again, you guys make this possible. Oh, that reminds me of one story about that. Okay, where were we? Oh man, I don't think I can even pronounce the name of the town. Oh yeah, I can. Yeah, I can. It was the motel. I forget the name of. It was Rancho something. But I think it was managed by Best Western. Okay, where was that? It was in. Let me think. It was an unusual name because it was set up by somebody from. The first prospectors were from Austria or somewhere. What the hell? Let me pause here and see if I can think of it. Well, I can't think of it. I always want to call it like Mecklenburg or something. It was north of Phoenix. I think it was between Phoenix and Kingman, Arizona. Yeah, because we were planning to go all the way to Kingman and didn't, and we spent the night here. Might have been about halfway between. Maybe a couple hours out of Kingman, south of Kingman, I don't know. But neat little town with history, kind of an old mining town or cow town. It was not a cow town, I guess, but interesting place. And we stayed at a motel right off the highway there. And it was still daylight. So that was kind of nice after all the driving, and stopped kind of a little earlier than we'd planned and unpacked. Had to car park. It was a really neat. It was all the rooms. It was mostly one story, the rooms, but really nice. Not some ancient place. Well, it was old, but it was remodeled and it was just really nice. And I had the car parked back there, the truck, and we had unloaded, and we were going to go out and have a cigar and walk around a little bit the town. And we were messing around the car. We were kind of in the back of the of the motel, and we had a couple cigars out, and we were using a poker trying to get Johns to draw, working on it and messing around there at the truck, mind our own business. We were just preoccupied with that, and I don't know, we kind of got lit up there, and we're about to move from the truck, and somebody hollered at us, and we were standing right by this wall, an adobe wall, and there was actually a house right on the other side of that wall, and not part of the motel, but it looked like almost it was. And there's a guy standing there, probably in his 20s. He said, "Hey, Hickok?" I said, yeah. He couldn't believe it. It was funny. He was a viewer, and I guess he just looked out his window, and here's a couple of goofballs out there, screwing around with cigars, trying to get them right. And I can just only imagine what was going through his head. He said, "These people, that looks like Hickok and John." Sure enough, it was in his backyard, messing around, trying to get a cigar lit. So anyway, that was kind of funny. If you're listening, thanks for saying hi. It's what you should have done. Come out. It would really, I told John, it would really been funny if he'd been sitting in the house. I don't know what the backstory is. If he were sitting in the house, watching a video, a Hickok45 video, and he looks out and past his computer screen, there we are out there trying to get a cigar lit. He would think he was in the Twilight Zone. Could have been what happened. I don't know. But anyway, we did run into a lot of viewers, and that's always good. It's good to see the ugly faces on the other side of the screen. It's good to know that the faces on the other side of this screen are almost as ugly as mine. Yeah. Some are actually pretty, though. Come think of it, we met some pretty viewers. That always surprises us when we meet female types that watch the videos. I tend to think of mostly ugly old guys, young guys, ugly young guys, ugly old guys. But a lot of people are into firearms now, and hopefully we're providing a little bit of information for anybody of any age, and hopefully it's constructive. Certain percentage of it's just for fun, of course. And some videos are not quite as informative as others, I'm sure. But we try to provide some information and fun and a little entertainment. Mostly information, I think, about firearms. Hopefully enough to make it worthwhile. And we can feel good about what we do, right? Instead of just trying to entertain you, pizzazz you. Can't do that anyway. Duh, I'm not an entertainer. But anyway, I'll quit yakking. And speaking of that, everybody we ran into, at SHOT and everywhere else, it's good to see you and meet you and greet you. And we appreciate you watching and the support. It makes it fun being able to get out and meet you all and learn more about firearms and know you support us. And the percentage of envious goofball trolls is so infinitesimal. I mean, they're almost non-existent, and it's just everybody. One thing we talk about, John and I, is after trips like this or we out meeting people, it's just impressive to us, the quality of the viewer. Okay, I don't know how else to say it, but just really cool people, and not a bunch of goofballs, whatever that would be. But I mean, really, we're just totally impressed with the people we meet that watch the videos. Just obviously smart people, right? Or they wouldn't be watching them, right? But just of all ages, all gender, and everything else. There's probably even dogs and cats watching. So anyway, we appreciate y'all being out there so we can continue bringing you these firearms, because they're fun to learn about and they're fun to shoot. And as long as you're watching, we'll keep doing it. Okay? I promise. Or I threaten. How's that? Is that a threat or a promise? I'll keep doing it. Yeah, we'll keep doing it one way or the other. And glad you're out there. We appreciate you more than you know. And you know that life is pretty good. Oops, wait a minute. There was something else. It's like the Chiappa takedown rifle. Thought I was finished, but I wasn't. I looked at that video and what a dummy I am. Wow. my brain must be sponge some days. Go for however long I went, 15 minutes with a takedown rifle, and don't take it down. Don't even say anything about it. It was pretty funny. As soon as I signed off in that video, I said, "Oh, John, one of the most important things about the gun I forgot totally about." I said, we got to add on to this one, man. And we've done that a couple of times, I guess. It's called making up for stupidity, I guess. But one thing I was going to mention is that I don't know if y'all watch or listen to other podcasts and that sort of thing. Bill Frady on what's his? Gosh, now I'm drawing a blank on that. But I catch Bill Frady most shows, I guess, and I can look it up here. Yeah, Lock and Load with Bill Frady, and he rambles on like me about guns and all that kind of thing, and I think you probably would like him. He's just a really likable guy, and talks about firearms and the firearms rights and that kind of thing quite a bit, and he's on every day. But so I catch him most of the time just on podcast. I'll, whenever, maybe riding along in the car or on the tractor or something, and I'll load up him or Tom Gresham or somebody, or Talking Lead, anything but my radio show. And I noticed on the trip, I hit my earpiece, and John and I listen to music most of the time or talk, but some periods of time there where he's sleeping or whatever. So I'll load him up. I went to the site a couple times. Well, it makes sense. The last podcast was posted on the 12th. He usually posts them the day that he does it, and in fact, sometimes like an hour later. And in the 12th, every time I'd look, it was the 12th was of January was the most recent posting. I thought, he must be having some technical difficulties. I know he changed companies recently and all that, but so I don't know. 2 or 3 different times I went in there and there was nothing new. So well, I think it was when I got back a day or two ago. I looked again, and there was one. Well, come to find out, the turkey had a heart attack. I think it was on the 12th. That was the day we left. He had a heart attack. I was out of the news cycle, believe it, for 2 weeks. I couldn't have told you. Putin could have died. I wouldn't have known it. I mean, we basically were just listening to music and riding along and looking at guns. I was really out of the loop. But so I didn't know that. But anyway, he's back among the living now, and apparently he was in the hospital for at least a week. So anyway, y'all know that if you listen to him. But I didn't know that. I just found it out. So I don't know. He said it's probably, I don't know. It's probably something related to his brain, I'm sure, that that just affects his heart. Because if you listen to him, you can tell he's just not quite right. He's like me. He's not quite right. No, he's a good guy, and I think you'd enjoy listening to him. I think he kind of grew on me. And he does talk a lot, and he rambles, but I don't know. I generally like the direction he's going, so if you ever get a chance, check him out. I'll send him a bill for this free plug. Since he's had a heart attack and all those medical expenses, he needs to get another bill, doesn't he? But anyway, if you didn't know about that, and you are a casual, once-in-a-while listener or something, you might have wanted to know that, so you can send him a get well card or something. So anyway, I will sign off now for real, and talk to you all later. Take care. You've been listening to the Hickok45 radio show. See you on the range.